like with the Gaza ceasefire, it started off very positively, and then the Americans and the Israelis just tore it up. And so, are we going to say the same thing with Iran? Possibly. But I think there's a reason to be hopeful. And it's for the reason that I gave earlier, is that Iran has deterrence, right? They can fight back. And I think that's why the Americans are in these negotiations right now. I think that's why Trump decided to tone down his rhetoric. I think there's no question about it. It's just like in the case of Gaza, they just don't have deterrence. That's the sad truth. I mean, there's very, very little. Maybe the only deterrence they have now is what, the Houthis and their blockade on commercial shipping, Israeli-linked commercial shipping in the Red Sea. But it's something that Israel can survive with American support. But Iran's different. Iran can fight back. And so, like in the first case, with the case of Gaza, really the Gazans are depending on the honor of the Israelis and the Americans. And I'm sorry to say, and I say this with some shame, but that's a mistake. There's just no honor among them. But in the case of Iran, the Iranians know they can't depend on honor, and they have the power, to create this deterrence, and they created it. And so I think there is reason to believe, to be hopeful there, that these negotiations will go through. And, first of all, the fact is that we did have a JCPOA before. We could do it again. There's something just, slightly different. Again, some face-saving addition to it. So it can be done. It's already been proven. And Obama, he was subjected to a lot of pressure. There was a lot of, there's always been this faction within the government that's opposed to any kind of deal with Iran and wants to attack Iran. And they're still there. Maybe they're even stronger now, but Obama was able to face them down and do it. Trump could too, if he really sticks with it. And let's just hope he does. So, yeah, I'm just kind of broadly speaking, I am hopeful, but we still have a minefield ahead of us.
Yeah, the scary thing is Netanyahu. It's just he has to have this war. He can't stop. This is his one chance. He's got to finish this. If things stop in Gaza, we just stop now. It's like, okay, you committed half a genocide. It's not okay. It's not going to fly. He's going to be thrown out of office. He's going to be put in jail. He in his mind, I think this is his one shot to create greater Israel, and he's got to take out Iran to do it. And so he's going to do whatever he can. I don't think he's going to take no for an answer. I'm thinking false flags, trying to attack on his own, whatever it is, turn all the screws on our politicians and the media outlets in the West to get this to happen. So we'll see. It's such a crazy thing that, every time, these Oman negotiations happen when it's going out, I'm thinking like, okay, well, are we going to war with Iran? Oh, I guess I'll maybe find out on Saturday if we're going to have a potentially world-ending war. And this isn't even, and for many people, they're not even really paying attention to this. They're not even thinking about the Oman negotiations and how important it is. But it's like, guys, realize that if this goes south, the U.S. could be embroiled into a huge war with Iran, and Iran is backed by Russia and China. This could go south real quickly. One thing we know about war is like once it starts, it's hard putting that cat back in the bag, and it can go any which way, and it spreads. It can go quickly, and then all of a sudden, boom! Oh, millions dead, tens of millions dead. World economy's destroyed. The whole world set back 100 years. Who knows? And people are like, I wonder what P. Diddy is up to. Oh, well, let's see what the Kardashians are doing. Like nobody, I just wish people would pay more attention. Just think of how important this is right now in our life. That these Oman negotiations, and I like you said, there was supposed to be one that happened on Wednesday. It didn't happen. I was just thinking, like, wait, are we
I'm
going to
not
find
sure.
out?
I just haven't heard anything. So I guess my assumption is nothing happened because I didn't hear anything about it.
Right. So it's like, well, we'll see. I'm just thinking, we'll see what happens. Are we going to war or not? I hate that that's the situation we're in.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think with the American public, it's just that they're used to these TV wars, where we attack countries, weak countries that really can't defend themselves. And it's just, they see all this very exciting TV footage. I remember the first Iraq war, that was a big deal and everybody loved it. And The second one, well, initially it was supported. It was just like we were in Baghdad in short order after bombing the hell out of them for a month, and then it was quite popular. It was just that when we got bogged down that it started to become unpopular. But still, the great majority of people never felt the consequences. They didn't actually have to pay for it. It was a huge cost, but the U.S., because it has a world's reserve currency, was able to print more money and cover up the cost. If you didn't belong to a military family, you didn't know anybody that died. So in general, wars are sometimes, are far off things, and sometimes they're even fun. That's the way Americans think it. And there's been a real attempt to downplay the strength of Iran and say, oh, they're completely a basket case, or they're just defenseless, right? We've been hearing all this, and I think that's probably that propaganda has its source with Israel, or at least with its supporters. Again, if they really were that defenseless, why isn't Israel itself flying over there? They know they can't do it. They know they're not defenseless, and they're trying to get the U.S. to do it. But I think we can still have enough realists in places like the Pentagon are telling Trump, hey, I don't care what you heard on TV. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really, really ugly. I suggest you negotiate.
I really hope so. I really hope so. I think there's just one of the reasons maybe a lot of people aren't paying such close attention to what's happening with Iran is that there's just so much chaos going on in the world. We focus on the Ukraine war conflict and what's happening in Israel, Palestine, touch on China, but you got the tariff war going on. You got the fact that the dollar might crash, the stock markets, everybody's watching this. There's just so much chaos. And I think a problem is chaos breeds more chaos. If you're not able to tamp it down, then it allows for some of these other things to spiral out of control without people paying attention because they're too fixated on the border crisis or whatever it is, the beef with China and getting mad at Canada or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the dangers where we've entered into a chaotic period. And
yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very good point. I just, like I think I said earlier, even a few years ago, let's just pretend nothing's happening in Gaza, nothing's happening in Iran, the Ukraine war never occurred. We would all be talking about what's happening in the West Bank, because there has been a huge spike in violence and ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, much more than ever since 1967. That would be a huge story, and we would be talking about it, and people would be concerned and saying, we don't even talk about it. Nobody even mentions it because it's just been superseded. It's been drowned out by all this other chaos, like, as you're pointing out.
Right. Yeah, Pandora's box has been opened, and I feel like unfortunately, we might be at the point where it's just going to chaos is going to just wreak havoc, and then we're going to see what's left, when it's all over. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm not being too pessimistic, but it's kind of how I'm feeling a little bit. Are you feeling that way?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just like whenever you think it can't get any crazier, it does. It was just, again, we haven't even talked about the tariff war recently, but it's huge and it's ongoing, and it's going to have huge consequences. I think, again, those are consequences that Americans are going to feel. A lot of them don't really understand how big these other shifts are because they're going to feel the impact in the short term, and where it really counts to them in their pocketbooks.